Well, hello there everyone and welcome to another WordGame Airline Battle video. After seeing in the first tutorial videos about what kind of units you can select from in WordGame Airline Battle and which are the stats in the unit sheet where you can see each one unit and its properties. We are going to see how to make a deck and how to make a properly balanced deck. Now, first things first, there are a lot of different decks you can try, and one of the fun things in this game, actually one of the most fun things in this game, is creation of decks and create very different and very widely different kind of decks with very different units, very different styles, very different themes, and very different strong points and weaknesses. Because basically, there's no way that a deck will be strong in everything just by default. I mean, there are some chances to do very balanced decks or rounders, which are pretty good at everything, but they are not going to excel at anything. You can make decks that excel at one point, maybe they have very good tanks, but they are going to be lacking at something else. So we will be looking at how to create a deck and how to tailor it to your desires. Okay, so first things first, you have to go to, of course, the deck area and hit create. And here you have a box where you can choose whether you want to be a NATO or a pact unit. But there are a lot of more things in here than just this. If you click on select bonus, suddenly you have a lot more boxes. And now you can tailor your deck for be a specialized deck, because if your only choice is faction, is pact, it's okay. You will hit create, and you will be able to choose between all the pact units, but you don't will get any bonus that you will be able to access by hitting on these things. Now, there are different bonuses, but those bonuses come at a price. The first one is nation, the second one is type, the third one is era. Now, each one of these choices limits you in the kind of units you can choose from, but also gives you a benefit. For instance, let's say I'm going to do a NATO US armored type B deck. So we will have an armored unit which gives us high veterancy for tanks and less tank activation costs. So we can get cheaper cards in the tank category, and they will be heavy of a higher veterancy. But we won't be able to choose any unit that's not available for armored units. Also, you will have -6 slots available for unit type infantry. So you get bonuses, but you also have minuses. Category B means that you can only choose hardware from before 1980. And you will have a plus 40% availability for all units. We will see what that is in a second. But of course, you only can choose from the pool of units that are before 1980. And finally, we choose the US. So we won't be able to choose French units, German units, only US. But we will have all the prototype units for the US unlocked, and we will have +2 activation points. Now, before we start getting into the bonuses and what they do, because we are going to take a look at that, first we are going to step into a standard deck, faction NATO. Let's say we are going to create a standard NATO, and we hit create. Now, in this screen you have the different type of units, the cost of the units, and how many activation points you have. As you can see, each one of the categories have a scalar cost. So the first unit you pick will be a cost 1 activation point. The second, most of them is at 1. Planes is 2. Third, most is 1. hilos is 2, planes is 2, etc. It scales up. The more cars of the same kind you pick, the more expensive they are going to be eventually. For instance, support, first card is 1, second one is 1, third one is 1, the fourth card is going to cost you 2 activation points. So the first limit is there. You have a limited set of activation points. Now, the only rule you have to follow when you are when you are creating a deck is that you have to have one unit. You only have to have one unit, but that unit you must have. All the rest you can choose from wherever you want. But there's one kind of unit you must have, and that's a command vehicle. Now, command vehicles come in very different shapes and traits, and you will pick the one you want, basically. Alright? For instance, let's pick standard WGAB PC. You pick that, you hit here, and there you have it. Now, selection process. As you can see, it's time we pick one of the units here. In here, there will be changes. As you can see, there's a difference. First is the cost. Second is the veterancy level. Well, actually, the first is the veterancy level. Rookie, trained, hardened, veteran, elite. We are going to enter into what exactly veterancy does in a second, but this is the experience of the unit. The higher the experience, the lower the availability. So for instance, we can pick if we want a unit of 4 trained WGAB PCs or 3 veteran WGAB PCs. Now, this little number down here in green is the availability. Okay? So we have veterancy, cost, and availability. Then there's another little number in each one of the cars. You can see 1/1. This is the limit of cars you can have in a deck of this kind. For instance, the WGAB PC, we can have 1. So if I pick one WGAB PC, I won't be able to pick another one. If we go with an M113A1 CP, which is a Danish one, we can go pick one and then pick a second one. But we have all our cards used up, we can't pick any more of them. Now, up here, of course, you have the filters. You can pick the nation you want to see and pick from that in all nations. Of course, if you pick a given nation, you only will have access to that particular nation. Now, as you saw before, there's a bonus to pick dedicated units. For instance, US. The US, we have picked NATO US. We only have US units, and we have +4 activation points. You saw before we had 3 in a general NATO pact, NATO deck. Sorry. So if we go like this, we have 33 activation points. If we go like this, we will have create. Oh, well, create 35. So that's the first one. The second one, by picking a nationality, is that you get access to the prototype units. There are some units that are labeled as prototypes. For instance, the MBT-70. You can see down here, prototype, yes. This unit has never reached mass production. It can only be filled in decks with a national bonus. So you have to have the nation of the prototype unit to access it. This is very important because they are very, very good units in the prototypes category, and you will be only able to use them if you select the nation the prototypes are for. So for instance, if we have a dedicated US deck, we can pick the MBT-70, we can pick the Apache, which is not available for all nation decks. We can pick the Nighthawk, which is not available for all unit decks, etc. These are very powerful units indeed. So there's definitely big bonuses to select a nation only deck. And it's usually not really limited in some cases, but there are some others and it's really limited. Because there are, other than the USSR, to be honest, I think there's not a nation that is strong at every single point of this. And for instance, the US has pretty decent infantry, has to be honest, has horrible support. The problem with the US is that the AA is under par. The Chaparrals are good, but they only have few missiles and they are pretty vulnerable. And the iHawks are woeful. I mean, they are horrible mostly because of their rate of fire. You can see it's 5 rounds per minute. This thing shoots one missile and takes forever to shoot another one. And in the meantime, they have come over you, they have bombed you, and yeah. So in the Americans, probably the weakest point is the AA. Of course, then you have the pivots, which is a pretty nice anti-aircraft unit. Let me check where it is. It's here. This one is a pretty decent anti-aircraft unit, but it's radar guided, very susceptible to SEAD, and it's an AA gun. It's not a missile, so it's not as good. So yeah, the problem with the national decks is that you limit yourself in a way with most nations. For instance, there are nations as the Danish that lack whole parts of the selection process. They have very good infantry, for instance, but they don't have really good tanks or anti-aircraft or helicopters, or so you are going to limit yourself by choosing a nation, but it's still worth it. So let's go back and quit, and let's see even more bonuses. So the second bonus you can choose, for instance, let's go this time for a pact, USSR, and we are going to go for armored unit. So, and we create it, and then you have, as you can see, infantry has 6 blank points. You only can select 3 units of infantry because you are in an armored unit. But to compensate that, you have 1 less cost for the tank units, and they will have higher veterancy. So, for instance, a T-80U, well, I'm going to choose some other. You will have unit that has 12 hardened, 8 veteran, or 6 elite. In a normal deck, this would be 12 trained, 8 hardened, and 6 veteran. So you reap that benefit from that. Also, note that in the type, there will be an armored. Type armored. I mean, all the units you can pick are only those that are present for the armored. Actually, there are some kind of decks which have access to most of the vehicles, but if you go for something like a para unit, you're going to be very limited in the amount of units you can pick from. Now, finally, pick very close attention to this. And look at this right now. For instance, let's see at the T55, the plain one, the 20.1. You can see you can access to 24 trained units, 20 hardened units, 16 veteran units, and it's a 9058 unit. Now, if we go back and choose packed USSR armored Cat C before 1975, and we create that, and we go to the tanks, and we go to the T55, you can see that we have almost twice the availability per card. And that's the way to compensate for the limit that of course means putting a much previous year of limits. Before 1975 there's not a lot of very modern stuff around, but you compensate for that with much higher numbers, so you can basically spam things like mad. It gets to retarded levels when you go into the supply things. I mean, you get a lot of tracks. You can get 2 FOBs for the price of 1. Instead, usually you will get only 1, but this gets 2 because it gets rounded up. I mean, it's 1 plus 80%, which is 1.8, which rounds up for 2. And in the plane, you get a lot of them. I mean, you get 80% more than what. Look at that. For 1 card of MiG-23Ms, you can get up to 5 MiG-23s. It's a very powerful tool, really. But of course, you will get a lot of obsolete hardware. So yeah, you want to really consider what you are doing and what's your theme. I mean, if you are going to go for I don't know, conquest game style deck, spammability is really desirable. But if you are going to go for, I don't know, a destruction game mode, where usually if your units get killed, the enemy will win. Of course, you are going to get a lot of more cheaper units, but they are going to die much easier. So yeah, you really want to pick the style you want and to find what's your deck going to be good for, because there are decks that will work very well for one game mode and work not that well for other game mode. Now finally we are going to take a close look at all the bonuses for the different type of units, and then we will do a balanced deck just to give an instance. So type all no bonus. Motorizer means that you get plus 1 XP for the units of Recon, and the planes cost 1 less activation points. But the problem is you get 6 less slots available for units for tanks. This can work very well, for instance, for nations that don't really have very good tanks. I don't know, maybe the Danish is a good instance. They get very crappy tanks. But yeah, that's motorized. Second style is armor. You already saw. More experience for the tanks, more cheaper tanks, and many less slots available for infantry. The next one is air assault. You get 1 extra XP for the units of the type Hilo, so you get better helicopters. And the Hilos cost less, but however you will get a lot less support availability. Next one is Marine. Marine gets plus 1 XP for infantry, plus 1 XP for the planes, but 6 less slots for the unit type Recon. The next one is Mechanizer. You get a plus 1 XP for the vehicles, 1 XP for the support, but you will have minus 6 slots for the unit type Hilo. And finally, the Paras. The Paras will get plus 1 XP for the infantry, more cheaper infantry, but minus 6 slots for the support units. And of course, all these are, remember, limiting you in the availability of units you can pick from. Because if you pick a para unit, you are not going to have Abrams to pick from. No matter that you don't have any limit to tanks. You're going to see it. Let's create this one. Para unit, tanks. Oops. Where are the Abrams? Where are the Abrams? Well, they are nowhere to be found because you only have accessibility to the tanks that para units get. So that's how you do a deck. You choose your theme, you choose your nation, you choose what you want your deck to be good for, and you do it. And now to illustrate this, let's do a deck. Let's make a deck live. Let's do I don't know, a NATO deck. For the purposes of this, I'm going to make, I don't know, German mechanizer. As you can see, by the way, not all the nations have all the kind of units to choose from. For instance, the Germans don't have marine or paras or air assault. You only have motorized, armor, or mechanized. But we are going to go with a mechanized unit, and yeah, with all eras. And this will give us, my aim here is to do a balanced, well, balanced German deck. Oh, Fox is playing War Thunder. That's cool. Good for him. I'm not playing that anymore. Anyway, balanced German deck. So we go with the Germans, mechanized, and we pick all eras, and we create it. Now, the first thing we want to do is logistics. What kind of logistics do we want? First of all, we want a command vehicle. So usually, what do we want? An armored car or a jeep? I actually going to pick the jeep. I don't usually do so, but this unit is very fast. Look at that, 110 kilometers per hour speed. That's really good for a command unit. Now let's pick a couple trucks and an FOB. And we are mostly set for logistics. Next is going to be infantry. In infantry, what I usually do is to pick the specialists first. Specialists are anti-tank and anti-air units. So the Germans have Milan teams. I don't know if they have Milan teams yeah, they do. JAD commandos. Here they are. Okay, so let's pick a JAD commando in a push, hardened, higher veterancy. By the way, the higher veterancy you get higher rate of fire, higher accuracy, and so the higher the veterancy, the much higher chances to win you have with your units. So I usually don't pick things under hardened, and I usually go veteran when I can. So we have an anti-tank unit. Now let's go with an anti-air unit. The problem is that the anti-air unit in the German is the Red Eye, and it's a crappy missile. It's really bad. So it's not worth for me picking a man pass for the Germans. So I'm going to go directly for the infantry. So we are going to go for very spammable infantry. Heimatschützen, trained, 24 units, very cheap. These are for garrisoning and delaying the enemy, very good for that. And let's get real here. I'm going to pick 2 units, both of Jaggers and Panther Grenadier. The Jaggers will come in push, and just in case I need them, actually I'm going to pick hardened, airborne with helicopters. And the Panzer Grenadier I'm going to pick in murders. Very expensive, but totally worth it. And now I have my infantry units. Not especially cost, because the last one costed 2. It's a little bit more than the usual, but it's a good amount of units and gives me a lot of different choices. I have some airborne, I have fast transports, I have cheap infantry, and I have expensive infantry fighting vehicles with anti-tank missiles, which are really good units with very good infantry on board. So this gives me a very nice setup to choose from. Next in line, support. Support is something I put a big emphasis on, because really you need anti-aircraft. So let's go for 1 unit of Gepards. I don't know if 1 or 2 of Rolands. And 1 unit of artillery. And well, actually, let me get rid of that. We have the prototype unit for the Gepard, the Flak Panzer Gepard A1. So we are going to pick that instead of the other. Let's just pick 1 of Rolands. And in the artillery. So we have the choice between these 2, which for all intents and purposes are mostly the same. Just what changes is the autonomy and the speed, and we want our mortars to be pretty fast. I'm not going to go for the artillery because this artillery is not really good. Only 3 accuracy, not big range, and yeah. So I'm going to pick these mortars, and I'm going to pick them hardened. So I have 3 units of them. So, excuse me, we are done with support for the time being. We still have to get to the midway, and we don't still have half our point spent. Now, tanks. In tanks, what I usually do is to go for balanced approach. I will pick a very expensive tank with the highest veterancy I can. Then I will pick a mid-range tank, which is more or less in the 100 cost, which the Leopard 2 pretty accomplishes pretty good. We are going to go for hardened with those. And then I like a cost-effective tank, which is not really expensive. And the Leopard 1 A4 really did really good. So we are going to go veteran in that. And we are going to pick 2 for good measure. So we have 3 top-class tanks, 6 pretty good tanks. These are actually high tier tanks because of the range, and 2 pretty powerful for their cost, cheap tanks with 50 cost, which is pretty low for a tank. Now, next, reconnaissance. Okay, here what I usually do is always go for a chopper if I can. So we have our chopper recon, one vehicle with very exceptional view if possible, but we don't get any with the Germans. We have Lush AI A1, sorry, with very good optics, which is good enough. So let's pick one of those, and then I will pick one unit of or two. We will see later on, but I will pick one of standard foot to the ground units with proper transport, because you want proper transport. If you pick a Jupiter, you are going to be very slow. So we pick this with an armor vehicle, and let's pick trained. There you go. So we have proper recon. Next is vehicles. The problem is the vehicles in the Germans, they are not really good, at least not in the armor and mechanized units. You have some ATG units, you have some ATGMs, which is probably the smartest thing to do, to pick a couple of these, and really the gunned units are not really worth it, so I'll pick this one in elite. So we have some pretty powerful ATGMs in very experienced mounts. So this will have a very high chance to hit on the first round. Now helicopters. Germans don't get really good helicopters. The best one they have, well, is actually pretty nice, but it only has anti-tank guns. It doesn't have any artillery, it doesn't have any rockets. So let's pick a veteran of this, and then just to fill the gap, let's pick a veteran of this. We have a limit of -6 helicopters, but as is not our theme, I'm not worried about that. Finally, planes. Planes, we want... actually, this is an interesting thing. A lot of people go for high veterans in planes, but I find that losing a plane is really very, very, very easy. So I go for numbers. So I pick a couple trained fighters, a couple trained air-to-ground missile units, and a couple, or three actually, three air-to-ground general effect bombers. The Alpha Jets I'm not going to be bothered with. I could pick maybe some more, but really I think that for my air needs, this is enough. Now we have 5 extra points. We can allocate in whatever we want. So we can back to logistic. I pick some more trucks, but I'm actually not inclined to do so. However, we can pick a Leopard 2 command vehicle, which can help us a lot. Or maybe pick a second Roland, which is a solid choice. Always have to have more anti-aircraft. And on top of that, pick a second unit of mortars to round it up. We have enough infantry, we have a lot of support, we are self-reliant or AAs, and you want to have your own AA cover all the time. You have a pretty decent tank set. Probably we could get rid of this second mortar unit and get more tanks, if that's your inclination. I find myself not using tanks that much, honestly. I just find them too vulnerable to many things. They are very powerful, don't take me wrong, but I think that with 21 tanks, and I mean 6 of them very cheap, very effective units, I have my needs covered with that. We have enough recon, we have enough vehicles, mostly because, well, the nation doesn't have a lot more options to choose from. We have some helicopter support for stopping enemy armor attacks, and we have a pretty decent plane complement. So that's how you do a deck. Now we hit back, we hit quit, you save, and your deck is saved. And you can edit it to tailor it to your need afterwards. And that's how you make a deck. At least a balanced one. Probably I will play some games with this and I will post some gameplay to see how we did with our deck. If you want to see me creating a dedicated deck with a given theme, just tell me so, the nation you want to see, the category you want to see, and the kind of units you want to see. Mechanized, armor, marine, whatever. So yeah, well, just tell me what you want to see, and I probably will be able to make some to meet your standards. So as always, guys, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have fun watching this, and I hope you learned something. Thank you very much for watching, and see you later.